Good morning everyone, welcome to my channel. Now this video is a little bit of housekeeping for my Roxy Journal of Stitchery, the project we're all working through, a couple prompts per month as we all stitch away. Now I've discovered that my journal that I'd prepared is just not going to be big enough because I'm stitching additional pages as well. So it's getting chunky already, and I think I've done 3 or 4 extras plus the 2 actual prompts, and my book is already full. So I've decided I need a second book. What a shame. So this is a video that is just the preparing of my second book, which is going to be the same process as what I did with this one. I've had a few people send me messages asking about these tabs. Now Rachel does have a couple videos showing how these tabs are made and adhered to a spine so that you can sort of see your signatures inside, and it's just, I think they call it a tab spine. So I'll redo a second book. I'll also show you how I did mine, same as how Rachel did hers anyway, but I'll go through that. My original plan was to potentially undo these tabs on this journal and make them bigger, but I decided against it because I don't want the book to get too fat because it just becomes too cumbersome. I'd rather make some more volumes to the story instead of having just this massive big chunky monkey. So what I decided to do is I went to the middle and I've removed this signature. Because they're just stitched in, I just snipped the threads and removed them. Now this will be the start of the signature for my next journal that we're going to make. I also had cut the fabric that is going to go as my needlework pieces that attach to the signature. So that now can sit to one side ready for the second book. At this stage, I'm going to leave these 2 signatures in here and see sort of how it goes, but I have a feeling this will look odd being so wide now that that signature's gone. So these 2 signatures may need to shift a little bit towards each other just to balance up the book. And in that process, I might decide that the ones that I did that aren't the prompts might come out and go into this new journal, and then this one will just have the prompts the girls have given us for the Roxy Challenge, the Journal of Stitchery. So that will be a decision in the future, but I have a feeling that they'll both come out and they'll both be slightly adjusted, and some of these pages might join the other journal. So I'll just pop that to one side. Now I'm starting with my favorite cookbook, which is the same book I used for the first journal. I've referred to this a couple times in the past. It's just a great size, very strong cover, and it's a Mexican cookbook that I found on a reduced table at a bookshop. So just to refresh, the size of this book is 7.5 inches and height is 10. Perfect size. So if you're ever out looking for some books to recycle, pop those measurements in your phone or in a notebook, so that just to remind you that this is just a nice shape to create embroidery on or do collaging on. It's just a really nice size. It's bigger than a novel, if that makes sense. So the cookbook section is a great place to start. So the first thing I did is I removed the internal pages, which I'm sure you all know how to do. It's just open the book up, cut a little line and slowly ease your Stanley knife down that spine to release the pages from the spine. So they're useful for all sorts of manner of envelope making and journal making, and it's just the gift that keeps giving, this cookbook. So that's left me with the spine. Now, because we're doing our own spine, these fabric tabs, we don't need the spine. So all I did was laid it flat, popped my metal ruler in there, and using a craft knife, I just run straight down, gives you a nice straight edge, and you're ready to go. So now my cover is separated and the spine is no longer required. The next thing I did with my journal was I covered the the journal the book with some fabric. So luckily I still have some fabric left that I used on my original one, so I'm definitely going to do that again. You will notice that this fabric, even though it is quite thick, it's like a textured linen, and it's got little nodules all through it from different threads they've used. It's just beautiful. I've stitched so much with this, and I'm sort of down on my last few bits of it, but it has got thickness, but I can still see the cover from below. That happens occasionally. You'll have a great size book, but you can still see the artwork. So to fix that, all I did was I just cut 2 pieces of cardstock, and I'm going to glue them into position. That will push back the print, and then when my fabric goes on, I've got a nice surface that you just can't see anything through. So the next process will be glue them down, and I'll just use a glue stick, cover the whole thing, apply it, give it a bit of a pressure from so the glue really catches. Then I'll let that sit for an hour so that it's just nice and dry, because once it's covered in fabric, if that starts lifting, it's going to be very difficult to get in there to fix it, and you'll sort of feel a crinkling or a bubbling effect. So you really want to take a moment to make sure that that is adhered. So I'm not going to rush that. I'm then going to come back once it's dry, place this fabric on, and turn the edges in, glue them down. So it'll be just a case of glue along there, and I'll use a white PVA glue, but I will use a bit of glue stick first just to get that to stick, and before I do, pop a bit of PVA in there. So I sort of use the 2 glues, because the last thing you want is that coming apart. So that will be the procedure there. I will bring in the edges and just cover that board. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video at this point, and I'm going to go and do those things. It sort of takes a bit of time for everything to dry, so I don't want to do it and then keep filming and then bump it and move it and things start lifting. And yeah, this book I want around for a long time, so I just want to take my time and make sure all my adhesives have secured themselves. So we'll stop the video, and when I come back, that task will be done, and we will start working on the spine tabs. We may not attach them, because I'd hate to be in the same situation where it gets too big and I then have to redo again. But you know, at the end of the day, that's really not an issue. That's what crafting's about. So we're always modifying and adjusting. It's difficult to get everything done in the one movement. It's always good to sort of play to get exactly what you want. So my next video will be the making of the tabs and the attaching of them to the cover. Okay, thank you everyone. I will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye. Okay, I'm back. I've started the process now of covering the 2 boards. This one is completed, so I just thought I'd show you the last little steps so that you sort of can see the way I do my covers. Before I start folding the fabric in, I covered the board with some more of the glue stick so that that adheres down on the fabric. If you don't do that, your fabric can smush around in your hands when you hold the book, which is fine. And sometimes, you know, I don't do this step, but this particular one, I've decided that I want it quite firm so that it is very much part of the cover, the fabric I'm using. So I've already done that. I also added another piece of card to the inside. There was all pepper grinders here, a really dark chocolate color. And I don't know what fabric's going to go on the inside here. And if it is a light fabric, I'll really regret the fact that that wasn't done. It will probably be something stitched and wadded and, you know, really thick, and it wouldn't have mattered. But just in case, I decided to cut some card and cover this as well. So at least, you know, it's prepped. So I've already adhered down this bottom edge. So I'll just carry on now with the process to finish off the cover. So I just put some of the glue stick down. That's a good little glue stick. It's just from our local Office Works. It glues fabrics as well as papers, but just to be on the safe side, I just add a little bit of white glue, or in this case, I had at hand some of the art glitter glue. That too, being art glitter glue, it grabs really quickly. It is just a PVA glue, but there's a component in there that gives it that quickly stick sort of properties, which is really handy when you're working with paper products and you want to just keep moving and gluing. This art glitter glue is awesome because it just dries within a second to 2 seconds. So excellent product. It's not cheap. It's, you know, you could buy a big bottle of PVA glue at a craft store or a $2 shop and you'd get really good value out of that. But if you want that fast gluing, the art glitter glue is the way to go. Now I'll just show you what I do with my corners. There's quite a few techniques out there where, you know, you can fold it over and then bring it up, but that gets pretty bulky, especially with a lot of the fabrics I use. Even calico, it's too bulky. So the technique I use is I actually cut a square of fabric out, but I don't go all the way to the edge. I'll show you a close-up once I get it out. So I'm removing some of the bulk. So I'll just bring that up to the camera. See how I've cut it just before the edge? That's not 1/4 of an inch, it's probably 1/8 of an inch, just a little bit. So that then allows me to still do that little subtle turn in, but I've lost the bulk that would be sitting there. And then of course, when I turn it up, I get a nice corner that's all covered, so I can't see the book. That's why that little bit is needed, just to cover the cardboard underneath. But then by removing that little square, gets rid of the bulk. So I'll just do that to the other side. So I just snip down a fraction in from the folded edge, and then as close as I can get it to the actual cover, because if you don't trim it nice and close to the actual cover there, you can get a bit of bulk in your way here as well. So get that nice and close. Get that to the camera. There's my little edge. Okay, and that's sort of just finishing there. So there's plenty of room for this fabric to sit up flush here without this piece being in the way. Okay, so the next thing I do is I just put, get it on camera, yep, I put a smear of glue there and a smear of glue there. I then come through again through this area and then get my white glue and just put a little bit around just to help hold it into position until all the glue's dry. So that little guy just bends in there like so, and that one, yep, that's done. And then bring it up. I might just pop a little bit of glue on that edge just to help it. There will be an insert go over this, and a lot of this won't be seen, but I guess the aim is to get it as flat as you can and as strong as you can, because, you know, as you hand this book to people to have a little look through, you sort of want it to survive being looked at, played with. Otherwise, all that work and your book is sort of falling apart before you know it. So just give that a bit of a squish to make sure it's nice and secure, which it is. And now we do the other side. So little snip in. Whoops. Sorry for dropping scissors and glues and making that clanging noise, but this glass mat, this Tim Holtz mat, is just so good. Having the measurements underneath your work and being able to refer to that is so handy, and it's just a great surface to clean. I put paints on it. This area here, this grid section, I can drop my paints on there and sort of keep a bit of a track of my mixing, and it's just fantastic. It's not real cheap, but it's just one of those pieces that's going to last you, being that it's glass too. It's just really strong and a really good size, so I barely get any muck on my desk because this is a really good sort of size. I do have a big craft mat underneath that again, and it's huge. It's one that I used to cut fabrics on when I was doing a bit of quilting back in the day. So I've placed that down as well. So my desk just is protected, 100% protected. Okay, so once again, we're just easing in those corners. Take your time, making sure that the fabric's nice and firm and tucked in. Okay, and up it comes. Okay. All right. Perfect. Just push that down. I think the word is burnish. Burnish the fabric. It's when you apply a bit of pressure with either a business card or a burnishing tool. That just really helps that glue to get into the fibers of your fabric and your cover, just to make sure everything's nice and secure. So we've got all our little snippets left. Fantastic for doing embroidery on and using in other projects, so we'll definitely keep those because it's such a beautiful fabric. Just had to put the pin in my art glitter glue and the lid on that. Okay, so we are there. We've covered our book, ready for the next process, which is adding some embroidery pieces and the tab spine. So I will finish the video here, and I will then do some more stitching, a couple more prompts with the girls, and then this book will reappear and we will start the process of putting in our signature. And by then I would have completed some more pieces of embroidery. So we'll make some decisions then on how big the tabs will need to be. But just to give you a bit of a preempt of what they are, what you do is you cut, whoops, I'll get a bigger pair of scissors. You cut a couple strips of fabric. Now this is just rough and won't probably be the size that I will use, but I will just show you the principle of it. So if you are ready to create your cover and your tabs, you're ready to go. So I've cut 2 pieces of fabric. It's a little bit crooked. Let's just straighten that up. 2 pieces of fabric. You're going to sit them on top of each other. And now let's use my fabric pen here as pretend it's a needle and thread, and you're going to stitch around like this. You can use a running stitch, a satin stitch, whatever you want. You can even go to the degree of doing some burrow stitch in here if you really want to make this, you know, very decorative. So now if that's stitched where my red pen is, that is joined. But you have the ability to open either side, okay? So the theory is then you would open that up and attach your tab. Can you see that? Let me get rid of this bottom one. So we just got the black surface. So you'd open up, where is the piece? Okay, let's start again. That's stitched onto there, nice and secure. You would then peel back the first piece and adhere it onto there, and then you'd open your book over and that would be stuck there. So now the tab is, I'm going to put a pin, hang on, let's slow the show here. let's use a pin to really make that stay still. Right. So you'd make 2 or 3 of these depending on your book and what you sort of wanted. I used 3 on my journal. That is glued into position there, and then you'd turn it over and glue that one down there. So now your tab is attached. So you can then get your back piece and glue that onto there and that onto there. So now, if you just imagine that is glued, it's now attached. Okay, and that then allows you to have your tab. You can see that's glued there and that's glued there. I've then done some embroidery and placed it over that edge so it sort of disappears underneath. But that's the principle. So that gives you a spine of embroidery that you would see on the side of your book, and then that's attached via those 2 tabs to give you that effect. If that makes sense. So as I said, I'm not going to do that at this stage because I really don't know how big I need this spine, and knowing that I'm doing lots of embroidery, this is just a great place to store all my pieces, and the Roxy challenge will be in amongst it as well. So I'm not going to make the same mistake. I'm going to hold my horses on the tab. But if you are ready to create your tabs and your spine and complete your actual book, that's how you do it. As I said, Rachel has some videos as well, so there's plenty of tutorials out there showing you that technique, but that's how I did it. Okay, everyone, I will leave it at that. Thank you for joining me, and happy stitching. Bye-bye.